Hi, Haunted family. Welcome back to another episode. If you haven't heard, we are doing a giveaway. We're giving away some pretty cool things. For details on how you can register and everything you need to do to enter the contest, click the link in the description box. We're giving away some pretty fun things, including but not limited to an Armchair Detective keychain, a Salem Broom Company t-shirt, and some creepy pillow dolls that we have created. They're really cute, really fun. I think you'll love them. Other things, of course, will be included in the giveaway because we like spoiling our listeners. If you like what you've been hearing so far, click that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and sit back and enjoy the show. For the first 14 years of my life, I lived in an old farmhouse about 3 miles outside of a small town in Tennessee. From my earliest memories, I can remember the bedroom in the back of the house always had an odd feeling about it. I still have no clue what was in that room, but it did not like me. Early in my childhood, I also had what my parents called imaginary friends that seemed very real to me and seemed to go away around the time that I entered kindergarten. I have vague memories of these friends. They talked to me, but I never saw a form, just the voice. They always seemed nice. I don't know if they had anything to do with what was in my room, but whatever it was definitely not nice. This room was my parents' bedroom. It was located behind the kitchen, and it was adjacent to my room, which I shared with my older brother until he graduated from high school. There was a doorway between the two bedrooms. Every time I went into this room, I would always get an uneasy feeling, as if something was watching me. Although this bothered me, I was sure it was just my imagination. Around the time that my imaginary friends went away, I started having very weird dreams about this room. At first, they were just of me being in the room. Then it seemed that each subsequent dream got weirder and more disturbing. Finally, this culminated into a dream which I had a dozen or more times, about some kind of entity dragging me into that room. It always started with me being in my room, and I would hear something from the other room, and although I would never see what was in there, it would seem to have me by my feet and attempt me to drag me into that room. I would try to scream, and either nothing would come out of my mouth, or it would be a very low and muffled scream that I could barely hear myself. It seemed that this dream would occur very often, but with no regular pattern. Sometimes I would have it multiple times in one night. I never saw what was trying to drag me into that room, but it always felt sinister. Somehow, I seemed to know that it was successful in getting me in that room that I would die, or worse. I tried to tell people in my family, and most of them said that I was just letting my mind play tricks on me, that it was just a bad dream. My mother never said these things, and always tried to avoid the subject if I brought it up. So after a while, I just learned to deal with it. I still had these dreams, but tried to convince myself that it was just nightmares. These dreams kept going on and on. Around the time I was 13, I got my first girlfriend. She also had uneasy feelings about that room, and I'm not sure where she got it, but one day she came over with a Ouija board. I was skeptical about this, and thought it was just a game, until about 10 minutes into playing it. It said some things that there was no way she could have known, that occurred in my childhood that I had never told her about. It also said some things about a bad man who was near. I took it to be referring to what was in that room. After this, I was sure that they were real. I was getting into that cocky, brave, invincible teenage mode that kids always seem to have. I decided that I wanted to know more. This house was situated on a large lot. In front of and next to 2 large grain fields. About 100 yards or so to the left was another house that had been partially burned down and then converted into a shed for the tractor. I had never really explored this shed. Before becoming a shed, this was a house that some of my relatives had lived in, and that was all I knew about it. One day, my girlfriend and I were walking from her house, which was about 2 miles away, and it started to rain. As the rain grew harder, we decided to wait it out. As we walked into the shed, I got a similar uneasy feeling that I knew pretty well by now. She asked me what was wrong, and all I could say was that something wasn't right about this place. She dug into her backpack and came out with the Ouija board. I thought, oh well, it's broad daylight, and it couldn't really hurt us. We started, and after a few minutes of unintelligible letters, it stopped, and the air seemed to grow colder. I didn't know it at the time, but that was one of the signs of a spirit being around. Anyway, she asked if there was anyone there, and almost immediately it slid to yes and stopped. We asked some random questions and got the expected answers. The rain slacked up, and we decided to go into my house. A few days later, we decided that it was definitely odd. There was something weird about that old half-burned house, so we ventured back. This time we went in mid-afternoon, and it was a hot summer day. I think it was mid-June. We went in and announced ourselves, making mention that we had been there just a few days before. Nothing seemed odd. We were just trying to get some confirmation that something about that place wasn't right without using the Ouija board, but nothing happened, so we took out the board and lit some candles. We started to try to ask some questions about who or what was in the area and such. At first, the spirit we were talking to seemed nice and unthreatening, but then it said that it must leave, and almost immediately the room became cold again, as it had done on the previous time. It was at least 80 degrees outside, but the room seemed to have dropped 20 degrees almost instantaneously. This was startling because the last time we wrote that off as just being the wind from the rain outside, but there was no rain outside this time. Again, we asked a question, stupid stuff, and then we asked for its name, and it spelled out either evil or devil. It happened fast, so we're not 100% sure. Either way, this freaked us out, and I was pretty sure whatever this was either the same thing that was tormenting my dreams or related to it. It was then that it told me some disturbing stuff. Very unpleasant stuff that scared me. So we stopped. When we went to put the board up, the planchette got really hot. This thing was made out of plastic, and it was hot enough to almost burn you. But the plastic didn't melt or show any outward signs of heat, only when you touched it. This really scared us, and we got the heck out of there. Later that summer, my parents separated, and we moved into town, about 10 miles north of where we were living. After we moved, the dreams seemed to go away. Several years passed, and I decided that I wanted to know what had went on at that place. I asked my mom if she had ever experienced anything strange. She had lived there, after my parents were married, up until they split up, so I was sure if there was something there, I was not the only one to have experienced it. She told me that she had felt the same uneasy feeling in that room that I had felt. She said that it was always as if someone was watching her while she was there. She said that she never told anyone because my dad said that she was crazy and that he swore he had never had anything happen to him. I asked her about the shed. She said that my uncle had lived there until he had died, and then that house had burned. I told her about my experiences with the Ouija board, and she got a weird look on her face, and then told me about some stuff that had happened before I was born. She didn't give specifics about names, but she said that I had some relatives whose house burned, and 3 of their children had died in the fire. Their bodies had been laid out in that house before the funeral. She also said that it was suspected that the fire that killed the children had been set for insurance money. I don't know if it was their spirits or something else, but after we moved, the dream stopped, and everything seemed normal. I say normal because I still have paranormal experiences, where I will still see people that are not there, or other odd things. I have not felt a presence like that one in that room since then, and I never want to feel anything like that again. These dreams traumatized me as a child. My sister was so scared of this house that she left and refused to step foot in the house again about 6 months before we all finally moved out. There were several spirits there. One was a man who would just stand around and watch you from a doorway, from one of the bedrooms. Another was a little boy. Late at night, my sister saw him run through the kitchen and into the dining room. Later on, my 2 brothers were trying to go to sleep in their room. The oldest thought my younger brother was messing with him by tapping him on the shoulder. When he was finally fed up with the younger brother's denial, he sat up. The comforter on both beds went flying off without either of them touching it. They saw the little boy run out of the room. My younger sister repeatedly saw faces in our bedroom. My mother saw a floating mass in her bedroom, which I later saw on the last night we slept there, hovering about just over my younger brother. My sister said that every night she could feel someone tuck her in. This same spirit later helped her when she collapsed and was paralyzed for a week or two. We also had issues with lights. Little balls of light that would dart around the house that couldn't have possibly came from car headlights. My oldest brother was playing around one night and was trying to take a picture of whatever it was. He was in his 20s at the time. Something came face to face with him, and he lost his breath. Later that week, my mother got scared and wanted my oldest brother to sleep in the room with me. Just about the time he dozed off, something grabbed him and threw him up against the headboard. He doesn't scare easy, being that he was in the military and all, but he was truly scared that night. The last day we were there, my mother made my sister go back into the house one last time. My sister was in our old bedroom, and she said that she saw something that resembled to her to be a demon. I didn't believe in things like this until we lived in that house. Recently, my mother was approached by a woman that bought the house after we moved out. She asked my mother if we had ever had any visitors. My mother chuckled and said, "Oh, you mean the ghosts? The people who moved in after us have been hearing and seeing things too. They've only lived there for a few years and are now in the process of selling the house because they can't stand the things that are happening there anymore." The road leading up to the house is apparently also haunted by Confederate soldiers. It was one of the main routes taken by Confederate soldiers during the Civil War in our state.